Well, hello and welcome. This is Tiffany Barron, your host for Create Your Own Economy, back with you for Lesson 2, Formula for Fulfillment. This formula will enable you to belong to that small group of men and women who truly enjoy abundance in all areas of their life. Now, as you begin to put this entire program to work, you will notice that your conscious awareness will grow. And you'll begin to see opportunities that you had not seen before. And you'll actually find that these opportunities start coming at you from many different directions. Now, this lesson is what will explain to you how you decide on the opportunities that you will reject and the opportunities that you will accept. This particular formula for fulfillment could be compared to a psychic compass, essentially. So when you use it, it will keep you mentally moving in the same chosen direction. So open your mind as Bob Proctor explains the importance of purpose, vision, and goals.
In the previous lesson, we discussed the importance of decision. Let me read you something Napoleon Hill said on this. He said, indecision is a habit which usually begins in youth. The habit takes on permanency as the youth goes through grade school, high school, and eventually through college without any definite purpose. Now think of this for a moment. Here's a student or a person going all the way through school, and they have no definite purpose. It's not a subject that's covered in school, and so most people go through their life like that. Now, he said the major weakness of all educational systems is that they neither teach nor encourage the habit of definite decision. So as we go into this lesson, I want to recommend that you really think about what this is all about. Because you could be just motoring along day to day, no real direction, no purpose. Now we have this particular lesson in Create Your Own Economy is without question one of the most important lessons and is actually the compass utilized to guide all of your goals and activities in the future. So let's think about this for a moment. If you have no purpose, you have no compass for your life. So you could be going this direction one day and that direction the next day. And you'll find that most people, they take 3 steps ahead and 2.5 back. And that's really the way they motor along through life. This lesson is the mental instrument that keeps you on course and helps determine the objectives or goals that you've established. Make sure they're the right ones for you. I could have a goal. If you had the same goal, it could be the wrong one for you. Then again, you could be on the right one, I could be on the wrong one. It's all going to go right back to the starting point. When we take a look at this and we realize the importance of this particular lesson, it's very, very easy to say, well, I shouldn't really do anything until I get this down pat. And of course, that would be wrong. You've got to keep moving and then correct as you move. You know, a rocket going to the moon is off course 90% of the time. It's just correct. Same with a plane. It's correct. And that's what we want to do. What we're really talking about here are 3 subjects, but you could almost say 3 in 1. We're talking about purpose, we're talking about vision, and we're talking about goals. Les Brown is a good friend of mine. He says something that I think is priceless. He said the 2 most important days in your life, number 1, the day you're born, and number 2, the day you decide why you were born. I really believe that you and I are hardwired to do something. If we never find what that is, think of what a waste our life would be. we try this and we try that. We never really get into it, so we never really win. Now, in the previous lesson, we talked about two things that you had to know. You have to know where you are, and you have to know where you're going. So when we're talking about where you are, what we're really talking about here is the starting point has to be the purpose. Because everything should be measured towards that purpose. I have people every day presenting me with opportunities. If I investigated all the opportunities that were presented to me, that's all I would do, is just investigate opportunities. And you have to ask yourself, what do you do in a case like that? It's very simple for me. I just glance at it, and if it's on purpose, I will probably get somebody else to look at it. And if they think this is pretty good, then they might suggest I look at it. See, you've got to be very particular about how you spend your days. Everybody gets exactly the same amount of time. We get all there is. And the hobo sleeping in the park has exactly the same amount of time as the great industrialist that's building worldwide organizations. They have exactly the same amount. So it's what they do with it that makes the difference. I remember having breakfast with Earl Nightingale one morning, and whenever I had the opportunity to be with him, I always had questions prepared. I mean, that time was not wasted. And we were speaking at a convention, and he asked if I wanted to meet him for breakfast, because he lived in downtown Chicago. I lived way up in Glenview. And so I said, sure, absolutely. When I sat down with him, I wanted to make certain that this time was well spent. I asked him, because he was probably one of the most effective human beings that I've ever worked with. He never seemed to be in a hurry, and yet he accomplished so much. He was the most listened to man in the history of the broadcasting industry when I was working with him. And that was only one thing that he did. But I asked him, I said, Earl, how did you learn to master time management? I can still hear his fork hitting the plate. He said, I didn't master time management. Nobody masters time management. He says, time can't even be managed. Nobody manages time. He says, we simply manage activities. He says, I just carry a slip of paper in my pocket and I write down on it things I have to do. I've been carrying one ever since. I don't try and manage time. I manage activities. When I go to bed, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I knew exactly what I was going to do when I woke up. Now, one thing I knew, that everything I was doing was on purpose. This is pretty simple and it's pretty obvious. We got to know where we are. We've got to know where we're going. Well, where we are is right here. We're talking about the purpose and then everything that surrounds the purpose. Now, if you don't have a purpose, it really doesn't matter what you're doing because you're not going anywhere anyway. So we say, well, if that's so simple, why are so many people stuck? And, of course, the answer is pretty obvious. They're locked into paradigms. Somebody else is deciding how they're living. They haven't decided how they're going to live at all. And they've got to change that. Now, we talked about the formula, C3, consciousness, creativity, and connections in the last lesson. I have been in this business for 40 years. That's a fair length of time. And I have traveled all over the world for almost all of that 40 years. And I have made an enormous number of connections. I know people all over the world, pretty effective human beings. I'm not flying into a foreign country and getting involved in small talk with somebody that's not going anywhere. These people are making things happen. Now, the beautiful part about being a part of this organization is that you have access to all those connections. If we just took the connections that are right here in this room, just at this table, Larry, you don't even have any idea how many people you know. Would you agree? You really don't. Yeah, and you see, if you know Joe, how many people does Joe know that you can be connected to? Well, let's take that and multiply it by everyone in the room. If I need something done and you know I need it done, and you have somebody that can do it, you're going to let me know. And vice versa. So do you see, the real secret to winning in life is having connections. Now, if you don't have the consciousness, if you're not utilizing your creative potential, the connections aren't going to make any difference. This all boils right back to purpose again. You got to make sure you know where you're going. You got to have that psychic compass. You got to have a direction. Now you have to ask yourself, do you have a definite purpose that guides your ambitions, your visions, and your goals? Do you have one? Because if you don't, things can be a little rough. Now, when you take a look at the Chairman's Club, it sits up there as something that is unique. And it truly is unique. When we talk about creating our own economy, I don't know anywhere you can go where you're going to have a better opportunity to do that than right here. When you think of all the connections there are here, when you think of the consciousness that this organization's operating with, the depth of creativity that's being expressed, when we've got it sitting way up there, understand that's where it belongs. So you see, someone is going to be down in Little Rock, Arkansas, or maybe in Kuching, in Malaysia, or in Chennai in India, or possibly in Denmark, maybe in Copenhagen. They're going to be listening to what I'm saying right now. And I want that person to understand that I'm here with a real live group of people from a number of different countries, and they're all coming together and they are connecting. They're working at raising their level of consciousness, about utilizing their creativity, yet we're studying this one lesson. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Copenhagen or right here in the room. The question still stands. Do you have a definite purpose that guides your ambitions, your visions, and your goals? Could you take and write your purpose down in one clearly defined statement so that if I give it to the doorman or the salad chef in this hotel, they would know exactly what your purpose is? You see, the answer to that question is clearly no. Most people don't know. They really don't know. The average individual is not doing what they really want to do. They're doing what they think somebody else thinks they should do. I love the way Earl put it one time. He said, the opposite to courage is not cowardness, it's conformity. If you're going to live a real meaningful life, you've got to have guts. And if you haven't, you don't even deserve to win. It's that simple. There's nothing complicated about it. It's very obvious. It's sitting right in front of us. As you really get involved in this, you're going to find the strongest opposition from family, friends, co-workers, next-door neighbors. They're going to look at you and they're going to think you've fallen right out of a tree. Oh, they will. Make no mistake about it. Who gave you your greatest hassle about coming here? Was it somebody you didn't know? I don't think so. I think it was someone you know very well. But you see, what we've got to understand is that we are spiritual beings. We are unique expressions of an infinite power. We're not here to please someone else. We're here for one purpose, to grow, to develop a greater awareness of our oneness of that which is. And the more aware you become, the more it's reflected in your results. It doesn't matter how you think you arrived here on this planet or under whose direction. The fact remains that each of us has specific talents and gifts that are uniquely coded within your own DNA. There's perfection within each one of us. Now somebody will say, well, I don't believe that. Listen, the fact that no one is expressing that perfection is another thing. But there is perfection within you. It is so buried in virus code and old paradigms that it never sees the light of day in most people's lives. Most people leave much the way they arrive. They never in their entire life pull the best of themselves to the surface. If you can see it, if you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. You can accomplish anything that you want. Now, as you go through life, you don't just pick up things you like doing by chance. It may appear that way. If you're not really familiar with the law, you may think, boy, was I ever lucky. You know, there isn't any such thing as luck in an orderly universe. Voltaire said we took these words, luck and chance, and he said we invented them to express the known effects of unknown causes. There's no such thing as luck. Earl Nightingale put this luck when preparation and opportunity meet. And isn't it true? And he said if you're not prepared when the opportunity presents itself, it's only going to make you look foolish. You discover what you're good at because you're meant to discover it. You don't decide on a purpose. You discover a purpose. Just as you were meant to figure out what your fingers do and how your elbow works, your unique gifts are hardwired into your system just as surely as your lungs are given their blueprint to breathe. I want you to think about the perfection that is already expressing itself in this physical instrument that you move around in. Have you any idea the number of electrical messages are sent flying through your whole system for the simple purpose of putting your name on a piece of paper? You think that happens by accident? Do you know you can look at a person's signature and you can know a lot about themselves? Anybody that's studied graphoanalysis will tell you that. And it's from these specific talents and gifts you're able to define and determine your definite purpose. The reason why you're here. What's in you cannot be found in another human being. Isn't that a nice idea? It's such an enormous concept. All the people. I was sitting with a man the other day, Sandeep. I said, how many people are in India? He said, about 1 billion and change. I thought, 1 billion people. Take a look at the map. India's not really that big. 1 billion. And they're all different. And yet they're all the same. Every one of them, their mind operates exactly the same way. It operates by law. Yet when we really understand that, you can study a person's behavior and you can get a real good reading on what's going on. I could walk by you in the hall and I could tell you all kinds of things about yourself. In fact, I could scare you with how many things I know. You know why? I just worked at developing one part of my personality and I just keep fine-tuning it. And so, if I know it, I don't ask you if I'm right. I know I'm right. See, that's where the consciousness comes in, conscious awareness. Well, let's become consciously aware of where our talents lie. I know what I'm good at, and I know I'm going to get better at it. And I know I'm going to get better at it because I keep working at getting better at it. No one wakes up and decides I'm going to do a worse job today than I did yesterday. But if you're thinking, you're going to think of how can I do a better job today than I did yesterday? How can I be a little more effective today than I did yesterday? If you don't have a purpose, if you don't have this down right, I'm going to wonder if I'm pleasing Anthony. I wonder if Susan likes what I'm doing. You got to get to a point where you don't care whether you're pleasing Anthony. Yet doesn't matter what Susan thinks about what you're doing. You know what really matters is what you think. And until you get that straight, there's trouble in River City. You're just going to have a problem. Purpose is very serious business. Make no mistake about it. And I've got to congratulate you on making the decision to be part of this Chairman's Club because that's a big decision. Somebody's going to be listening to me and say, I wonder what it's about. It's about you. That's what it's about. It's about how to magnify the beauty that's within you, how to really make it happen. Yet the beautiful part about this is a virtual organization. You can be connected to people all over the world 24/7. That's a beautiful idea. But you know something? If you don't have a purpose, it doesn't mean much. I love the way my good friend James Allen, he was dead long before I was born, but he's my good friend. I love his work. Yet he says, until thought is linked with purpose, there's no intelligent accomplishment. And you know what's really strange? Some of you had the wisdom and made the decision to come here, but I know if I asked you to take right now, write your purpose, yet in clearly defined statement, one short paragraph and give it to me, some of you wouldn't know what to write. Now, because I'm making a big deal out of it, because it is a big deal, hopefully you're going to spend some time thinking about this over the next few days or few weeks. It's not something you just stop and do. It's something you play with each day. Really think about it. Now, if you fail to determine your purpose, everything else is going to be wrong. You say, what? If you don't have your purpose, everything else is wrong. It's like working with a broken compass. You may think you're going north, and you're not. You're not sure which direction you're headed, so you're just wandering aimlessly. Just think of some of the people you know. They're like a leaf in the wind. If the wind blows that way, the leaf goes that way. And if the wind swirls and goes that way, that's the way the leaf's going to go. There is no clear direction. When you have a purpose, you can quickly judge everything by it. It's like having the compass. Without purpose identified firmly in your mind, you're going to wander through life never quite feeling that you're in the flow. Now, when you get in the flow, you're going to know you're in the flow. When you do good work, you know you're doing good work. You're just an instrument for Spirit to flow through. That's really what you are. And Spirit never expresses itself other than perfectly. Now, when you're open and letting it flow freely and you become an instrument, it feels so good. Feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. Yet so you become consciously aware of the vibration you're in, and you're in harmonious vibration with the law, and Spirit operates by law, so it's got to feel really good. Yet when you're in the flow, that's how you feel. Now think of living like that. Think of how easy it is to spot the people who are not living like that so you can steer around them. If you're driving down the road, and you see a big pothole, you're not going to aim right at it. But if you're not even looking where you're going to hit the pothole. Some people find themselves mixing with individuals and they're starting to feel depressed and they don't even know why. Well, that person's energy is getting in their subconscious mind. It's moving them in that vibration. But if that person had a clearly defined purpose and they were open for this power that flows to and through us, you see, circulation is a law of the universe. Everything's governed by a law. Well, one of the laws is circulation. I really believe here, you and I are here to do God's work. Now, I'm not making this as a religious statement. I'm just making this as a fact of life. God being the creator, there's a design in this room. To say there was no designer is absurd. Do you think everything just fell into place? The molding just landed where it is? Someone had to design it. Therefore, there has to be a designer. Well, wherever you see creation, common sense will tell you there has to be a creator. Well, the creator operates in a very orderly way. It gets dark at night. It gets light in the daytime. The tide goes out and the tide comes in. This is all an expression of law. And when we start to understand the law, and then we bring our life into harmony with the law, and we start to think of what's God's work is creation. And we were given creative faculties. Yet it's so important to understand that we've been given these creative faculties. I did a seminar for 2,000 school teachers one time, not too long ago, yet not one of them could tell me what our creative faculties were. Now, if they can't tell me what they are, they're going to have difficulty telling me how to develop them. Purpose does give our life meaning. It explains why we get out of bed in the morning, why we do what we're doing. And we got to understand, we must get it straight in our mind, that we are truly spiritual beings. And Spirit operates in a very exact way. So as we get this in our consciousness and start to realize we're spiritual beings, Spirit cannot be seen, but we do know Spirit's all-powerful. We do know that Spirit's all-knowing, yet we also know Spirit's omnipresent. Yet as spiritual beings, all the knowledge there ever was or ever will be is within us. How do we know that? Because Spirit's omnipresent. It's everywhere equally present all times at the same time. It's all-knowing, it's all-powerful. Therefore, all the knowledge there ever was or ever will be, and all the power there ever was or ever will be, is right within me. It's my responsibility to learn how to tap it in and utilize it, to open up so that knowledge flows through me, to me, and through me. Yet when you say I don't have any energy, what you're really saying is I've shut off the flow of power. Because you have all the energy there ever was or ever will be. How do you think a small man or a woman, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, lifts a car off someone when they're trapped underneath it? They could throw the car across town if that's what was required in the mental state that they're in. They're in a state of shock. They're not reasoning. They're just, lift the car. The car's lifted. Where'd the power come from? The power is always there. And later on, they'll say, how'd you do that? And I'll say, I have no idea. Well, I have an idea. They just don't realize who they are and what they are. You've got all this power. Most people think they're physical beings. They're not physical beings. They think they're physical, having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being, and you're having a physical experience. And unlike any other form of life that's created, we were given mental faculties. Archibald MacLeish, a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, wrote a play called Secret of Freedom. And in that play, he had a character stand up and say, the only thing about a man that is a man is his mind. Everything else you'll find in a pig or a horse. He was right. They've taken the valve out of a pig's heart, put it in a man, and the man's heart continued to work. Why? Well, the only thing different in the animal world and our world are the mental faculties that we've been gifted with. We've been given creative faculties. That's the thing that separates us from our pets. Now, most people don't understand that, and so they're not living at a much higher level than their pets. You say, oh, come on, you're exaggerating. Oh, no, I'm not. They really think the deal is get by. Earn enough to get by. We have these higher faculties. Now, it's how we use these higher faculties that's going to dictate our emotional state. You and I are emotional beings. We have emotions. And it's how we use these higher faculties that's going to dictate our emotions. And we've got to understand the emotions are the vibrations. We have the ability to cause ourselves to vibrate whatever way we want. We can be on a very high frequency or on a very low frequency. Now, when you're in sync with a person, that's called love. When you're in sync with an idea, it's still called love. This is why Alfred Adler, the great psychologist, he said, I am grateful to the idea that has used me. You got to find out what you love doing and dedicate your life to it. I've always felt very fortunate. I really feel blessed because fairly early in my commercial career, I had the wisdom to go and sit down with Earl Nightingale. I flew to Chicago just to sit down with him for a few minutes. That meeting really impacted my life. And he said something to me that I never forgot. He said the real secret is just finding what you love to do and then dedicate your life to it. This was right near the end of our meeting. He said the problem with most people is they don't know what they love doing. And when he said that, the second he said it, I was excited. I knew here was a man that I considered one of the wisest I'd ever come across, yet he was validating something that I felt inside. I knew what I loved to do. I loved to do what he was doing. And I was doing what he was doing. But I was in a different business. I had offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. Yet I walked away from it because it wasn't what I loved doing. I had to do what I loved to do. If you're not prepared to take the risks, you don't even deserve the reward. I talk about minnows in the shallows. That's where most people live. Scrounging for a little nibble of food. Never really understanding what they've got going. Never understanding the connections. They miss it. I knew I understood it. I knew it. He validated it. Yet I made up my mind, sitting there with him, that I was coming back and I was going to work with him. And I set a goal at having a position in that company that would put me in an office right beside his. And that's exactly where I ended up. I knew what my purpose was. I had the vision, and I had the goal. Now, I got a double benefit out of it because his partner had the office there too, Lloyd Conant. Lloyd was a phenomenal businessman. He had great business acumen. And I developed a pretty good business mind. I just don't use it much. I work on Earl's side of the board, on the creative side. If you come across what you love, yet you don't let go of what you're doing, you don't deserve the reward. It's that simple. If you're not prepared to give up the life that you've planned, you're never going to enjoy the life that's waiting for you. That's pretty big, you know. That came from Joseph Campbell. Well, let's understand in this order. Spiritual. You're a spiritual being. You have an intellect. You live in a physical body. You'll often hear people say, that's him, that's her, right there, pointing to the body. No, 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 no. Then you're going to hear people say, she's an intellect or he's an intellect. This is what I am. I am spiritual. This is what I have. I have an intellect. This is where I live. I live in a body. And let's clearly understand that spirit is 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. There's nowhere where spirit is not. Let's understand that spirit operates by law, and one of the laws is the law of vibration. I want you to imagine that pad again that we talked about in a previous lesson, the line pad. Let each one of the lines represent a level of vibration, a frequency. Let's understand the lines way up at the top of the pad. That's where the spiritual side of your personality resides. That's the highest side of you. And let's understand the lines towards the bottom of the pad is where the body is resident. That's the lowest frequency. Mind and body is in a vibration. Yet it's very important we have it in a very high level of vibration. Because when we do, that's when we're doing our best work. Now, where do most people spend all of their time and all of their focus? On the lowest frequency. They're focused on the body, on the physical. Where should we be focused? We should be focused on the higher side, the spiritual. And then let's understand the connecting link that separates us from all of the rest of the animal kingdom is what's right in the center, the intellect. And it's how we use our intellect that'll dictate where we're going to go. But let's also understand that all those lines are all hooked together. Each one is referred to as a frequency. Every frequency is hooked up to the one above and the one below. There's no line of demarcation. What you cannot see and what you can see is all hooked together. The only difference in one thing and another is density or amplitude of vibration. But they're all hooked together. Now let's understand that you and I are spiritual beings. Let's grasp the concept that we have an intellect and we live in a physical body. And if we will activate our intellect, if we'll really start to think, we can tap into this infinite world, pull thoughts together, because that's where thoughts are. They're omnipresent. Yet we can build any idea we want. Then let's understand if we hold the idea in our mind, by law, it must move into physical form. That's the perpetual transmutation of energy. How do you do that? You do that with your creative faculties. What are your creative faculties? Your intellectual factors. And the more you understand it, and the more you use it, the more you're going to improve the quality of your life. You see, there's something about you that is truly phenomenal. You should just wander around all day saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All you do is choose. Spirit does all the work with and through you. But it'll do anything you ask. Just ask. And if you don't ask, you don't get. I love the way Napoleon Hill put it. He said, what a different story people would have to tell if they would adopt a definite purpose and then stand by that purpose until it had time to become an all-consuming purpose. I visited Earl Nightingale around 1966. And from then until now, I've been firing in the same direction. I have not deviated. I've had lots of problems. I've lost everything I had a couple of times. But I took it that was just happening to strengthen me. And if I couldn't handle the loss, I would never enjoy the real reward. And you've got to get that straight. And you've got to understand that the most important thing in your life is your life. Not someone else's life, not someone else's opinion, not what they think, not what CNN broadcasts. It's where you're going. That's the most important thing. I use as an example, on an occasion, I was going to a wedding in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Now, I knew where Tennessee was, but I had no idea where Gatlinburg is. And I live in Toronto. So I got my wife to get maps from someplace. This was before we had the satellite in the car, And brought the maps back. Yet it was all broken down, exactly how to get from Toronto to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It was broken into parts. Now, why was I going to Gatlinburg? I was going to a wedding. How was I going to get to Gatlinburg? Well, I had to build a vision of myself getting there. So I took a look at the maps. I had my purpose established. It's the wedding. That's why I'm going there. There were stops that I had to focus on. The vision was getting there. The purpose was the wedding. The first goal that I set was getting from Toronto to Detroit. So I had to go from Toronto to Windsor, Ontario, cross the bridge into Detroit. Once I got to Detroit, I could forget Detroit. That goal had been reached. The next goal was to get to Cincinnati. Yeah, that's all I focused on was Cincinnati. I didn't have to worry about the wedding, didn't have to worry about the vision, just focus on the goal. Get to Cincinnati. So I just looked for signs. Cincinnati, Cincinnati. Yet I kept following those signs. And I drove into Cincinnati. Then I had to get to Lexington. Then I had to get to Louisville. Then I had to get to Gatlinburg. I had it marked out. I didn't concentrate on Cincinnati until after I got to Detroit. When I got to Detroit, I forgot about Detroit, and all I focused on was Cincinnati. You see how you break it down? It's really pretty simple. Most people are worried about, how am I going to get from Louisville? You better concentrate on getting to Detroit or you're never going to get to Louisville. You got to get it right. You got to get it broken down, but you've got to have a reason for doing it. Then you have to have a vision of doing it. You got to have a purpose. You got to have a vision. And you got to have a goal. Now, when you do that, good things are going to start to happen. And if you don't do it, good things aren't going to happen. We have a vision. We're building a global organization dedicated to improving the quality of life worldwide. We create products and services with like-minded people. We do it in harmony with the law of compensation. We get the vision. We attract whatever we require. You see, in 1968, I literally started this business. Now, I had been in the business. I had studied it for quite a while before then. And it wasn't until 1998 that I started to pull everything I had learned together. Now, we had programs on doing this and programs on doing that, but I took everything we had and I put it under one roof, and it was called You Were Born Rich, and you are born rich. You are born with deep reservoirs of talent and ability within you. Most people are just a little short of money. But everybody's born rich. And in 2007, an attorney from Seattle, in the United States, came to me and said, you have not pulled everything you know together under one roof for 20 years. You did it once before after you had been studying for 20. Well, you've been studying for another 20. Maybe you should do it again. And that was Sandy Gallagher Alford. And she said it should be called thinking into results. Thinking, a spiritual concept, because that's where thoughts are. Thoughts are omnipresent. Thoughts are of a spiritual nature, into results, results of the physical. Spirit always manifests through its polar opposite, the physical. If you don't have the purpose clearly defined, you're not going to have a vision. As we point out in our lesson, you're not on this planet to live someone else's dream. Most people are actually extras in their own movie. Yet it's so difficult sometimes to sit down with your spouse and say, I am not going this way anymore. I'm going my way. I'd like you to come with me, but if you don't, goodbye. You are a soul that's seeking awareness of its oneness with Spirit. There's been songs written on this. If it's the last thing I do, I'll get to you. It may be the last thing, but it doesn't have to be. I'd walk out on all my friends to get to you. Go listen to the esoteric meaning of some of these songs. Go listen to the esoteric meaning of Welcome to My World. Won't you come on in? Miracles, I guess, they still happen now and then, the same as they did 2,000 years ago. Nobody understood them then. They don't understand them now. How do you get in? You just knock, and the door will open. Seek, and you will find. Ask, and you'll be given the key to this world of mine. Yet, you know, it's a strange thing. Michelangelo painted a picture of the doorway to heaven. There is no doorknob on it. You know why? It's open from within. You've got to know what you've got locked up within you. Then you've got to start to develop it. What is it you love to do? Don't bother yourself with what anyone else says. That's why you're here. You're here to do what you love. Our paradigms, which we're coming up to, are so deeply embedded into every molecule of our being. We won't permit ourselves to do what we're actually here to do. It's sad. How many people are desperately trying just to please their parent? How many people are afraid to do this or that because of what their mother would think? Yet their mother's dead. It's not their mother that's the problem. It's the idea they've got in their mind that's the problem. They're holding themselves back. Yet never was their mother. Yet what they think. When we talk about create your own economy, my goodness, if you don't even know how to create your own goal, how are you ever going to create your own economy? Before you can create your own economy, you've got to take charge of you. You've got to make sure you are on course. The trip I made to visit with Earl, I was fortunate enough I made when I was a fairly young guy. That trip has enabled me to add meaning to every day of my life. Now, does that mean that every day has been a real good day for me? No. No, there's some days when things happen that I just assumed they wouldn't have happened. But they happened. And I've got to the point where I understand that even the things that appear to be bad on the surface are really good. I like the way Michael Beckwith, my good old buddy down there in L.A., he said, God is good all the time. Everything that happens is good. You've got to find the good in it. Yet your greatest lessons were your greatest catastrophes. Biggest bumps in the road are the ones where the biggest wins were. Let's understand that. Let's understand that everything that happens is for our good. It's imperative that you not confuse your purpose with your vision. In our solar system, the sun is the one stable element around which all the other planets revolve. Now, we say the sun rises. The sun doesn't rise. The sun doesn't set. Why do we say that? I remember I was in L.A. in a meeting, and there was a person that we would say was black person. And I asked somebody, I said, what color are they? And they said, they're black. I said, what am I? And they're white. And you see, the truth was I wasn't white and they weren't black. You've probably never seen a black person in your whole life. I never have, nor have I seen a white person. If you ever saw a white person, you'd probably run. It would scare you. They pointed out that my shoes were black. They weren't even close to that color. My shirt was white and I wasn't close to that color. Why do we say they're black and I'm white? Because we're programmed to say it. That's why. You don't see with your eyes, you see through your eyes. You see with cells of recognition in your brain. The sun doesn't set, nor does the sun rise. We go out and we say, isn't that a beautiful sunset? Come on. The ball you're standing on is turning. Your purpose is your sun. It doesn't move, it doesn't change. Your vision and its subsequent goals are the planets that will revolve around your purpose's perimeter. People often say that they thought they were keyed in on their purpose in life, but for some reason, nothing seems to be falling into place to further that purpose. They mistakenly conclude that it's the purpose that is off kilter. Well, this may be true. In most cases, it's not the purpose that's off kilter. It's the vision that's not getting you there. If you're really honed in on your inner voice, if you've been true to yourself, if you've not allowed the negativity to sway you from what you believe to be true, you're going to be on the right track. But if you let those things that are going on inside, if you let those get to you, then you're going to blow it. It isn't going to work. As you dig into this, you're going to realize just how important your purpose, your vision, and your goal becomes. You got to ask yourself, how ambitious are you? What are you willing to sacrifice or endure in order to get yourself moved into the right track? The fact is, no matter how easily your purpose comes to you, you're going to be asked to make sacrifices in order to fully bring it into life. In order to have any good come into your life, you must create a space for it first. And that's the law. If you don't create a space for your good, you're not going to get it. I cannot put something where this table sits until I get rid of the table. You've got to create a space for the good that you desire. That was the last part of the Born Rich program. It was the vacuum law of prosperity. You've got to create the space for the good that you desire. Yet, and if you don't do that, you've got to let go of some of these silly ideas that you've got about what you should be doing or who you're obligated to or who you're responsibility for. Your responsibility for you, that's it. If you have children, they're small, you're responsible for them. But beyond that, you're not responsible for anybody else's behavior. I know a lady, and she is having a very rough time right now because her son is into drugs, and she is just hurting so bad. She feels so bad because she feels responsible for him. She's not responsible for him at all. She's responsible to him. If he doesn't want to take responsibility for himself, she can't do anything about it. You say, well, that's a pretty hard stand. That's right, it is. And if you're not tough, you won't make it. Those weak little trees, in a strong wind, they get blown over. Well, it's the same with people. Weak little people, in a strong wind, they get blown over. First little problem, they fold. When I mean sacrifice, there are people who envision some kind of Old Testament ritual that involves really unhappy goats. That's not what we're talking about here. That's a common misconception out there, that a sacrifice means you're losing something. You're not losing anything. Sacrifice means giving up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. That's really what it's about. Are you making the sacrifices you have to make to enjoy the rewards that you say you want? When you sacrifice something in order to operate at a higher level, your purpose and your mission on this planet, you're just giving up something of a lower nature to bring in something of a higher nature. You can't go to the top of the ladder unless you leave the bottom. Now you hear that and you'll say, well, God knows that's true. So do I. And so do you. Here's a good question for you. What would you sacrifice in order to move into a new life? In order to obtain your dreams, in order to do every day what you love to do? What are you prepared to sacrifice? I watch people every day struggling, really struggling. with what they're letting go of or attempting to let go of. And it leads them to all kinds of ridiculous behavior. Now, I'm not talking about giving up your health or anything like that. We're talking about shifting paradigms, giving up one way of life to start to move in the direction of a new way. Do you know what it might be? It might just be give up your subservient role. Quit thinking that you have to please someone else. You don't have to please anybody else except yourself. And if you are playing a subservient role, I guarantee you're building a bad situation that's going to get worse. That's what these dependency things are all about. You talk about these codependents, that's where one's going to save the other. One needs something, the other one thinks they've got something to give. Leads to nothing but trouble. Maybe that's what you got to give up. Maybe you got to give up leaning and stopping and thinking of what you've got. You've got all the power that there ever was or ever will be in you. You've got all the knowledge that there ever was or ever will be within you. Yet you're not going to attract the knowledge you need until you make the decision. When you make the decision, you flip your brain onto the frequency that you have to be on to attract the thoughts and the things that you have to attract to get to where you want to go. It's all about law. It's all about frequency. You got to get up where the air is a little thinner. The ideas are a little bigger. And things are a little more meaningful. Quit monkeying around down there where you think it's safe. There's no safety there. That's probably the most dangerous place in the world. The greatest risk is not to risk. I point out there's an enormous difference between hunger and greed. Hunger is understanding that you have an infinite source of supply and that you're here to do God's work after all. God is the creator and God's work is creation. It's why we possess the hunger to express the power in a greater way every day. The wants come from the essence of our being. Wants are of a spiritual nature. Wants keep jabbing you in the consciousness. Want this. Want this. Somebody say, why do you want that? You already got more than you can use. Oh no, I haven't got more than I can use. I'm doing something big. I need more. It's not for your own personal aggrandizement. It's not for your own pile it up so you're better than your neighbor. It's you got a big job to do. You need more. You need more knowledge. You need more money. You need more connections. That's why this organization, I believe, is so powerful. That's what we're bringing together here. We're bringing together people who are all locking in on a purpose, who want to share, who work with the law of cooperation instead of competition. If I compete with you, Tony, and you win, what have you proved? You proved that you can beat me. If I win, what have I proved? I proved that I could beat you. But if we come together and we cooperate, we both win. And so do a whole lot of other people. Have you spent any time just thinking of what can happen just in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada? It's enormous what we could do if we cooperate. If I'm scared, we can't cooperate. If you're scared, we can't cooperate. We got to get on the same frequency. Then what happens? Our power is compounded. That's where quantum leaps take place. We've got so much going for us, but we've got to do it in an orderly way. When you're in harmony with the law, greed thinking does not exist. You must have a purpose. You don't look for it. You don't decide on it. You discover it. It's like Napoleon Hill said, don't go searching for opportunity. Reach out and embrace it right where you are. Let yourself relax. Understand why you're here. What do you really love doing? I think it's very obvious what I love doing. When you're doing what you love to do, it will be obvious, and you will attract people that will help you do it better. And you've got to work together. Two of us come together, we've got real power. We don't just double it. You bring two together, you got 11, it compounds it. We got so much going. So it's absolutely essential that you see your purpose. And then say, how am I going to do this? And you build a big picture. It's a multiplicity of goals that run way downstream. But you've got to build a big idea. Then you have to have a goal. You got to have a target that you're shooting at. Now, I'm going to call our Chief Executive Officer of Life Success Corporate, Ms. Gallagher, and I'm going to ask her if she will come up and just summarize this lesson. This is an important lesson. It's one of the most important. In fact, none of the others count if you don't get this one right. So give Ms. Gallagher a big hand.
I really, really love this lesson. This may be the lesson that changed the direction of my life more than any other lesson. So I want you to really think carefully about what you've just heard. There are 3 key points that we talked about. And the first is to discover your purpose. And what this really means is to figure out what you love. And I want to do an exercise designed to help you get in touch with what you love, okay? So take a deep breath. Just let it all out and relax. Just totally, totally relax. Okay, and then put your hands out and just visually picture your hands. You got your eyes closed, but just picture your hands and say to yourself, these are my hands, but I'm not my hands. And then visually look down at your abdomen and say, this is my abdomen, but I'm not my abdomen. And look down at your body and say, this is my body, but I'm not my body. And now take another deep breath and just imagine that you've just woken up. Your alarm didn't go off. You just woke up when you wanted to wake up. And then imagine further that you've got the whole day ahead of you and you can do whatever you love to do. So start letting your mind think about what you love to do. What are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? You've got the whole week to do what you love. Now really feel that. Hold on to that feeling of what you love. Now open your eyes and come back, but I want you to hold on to that feeling of what you love. And I want to know, did anybody have any difficulty at all just imagining spending your entire life doing what you love and only what you love? Did anyone have a challenge with that? Okay, I see a lot of hands going up because I know that I had a lot of challenge with that idea. I remember the first time Bob said, think about what you love to do and spend your life doing it. And so I closed my eyes and there was just a blank piece of paper. And it was because of my conditioning. It was because I was on this train track to being a lawyer. And then I'd go to the office and I'd come home and I'd see my 2 loves of my life, Sam the man and Emma. And these are my black labs, and they are absolutely adorable. And I'd be driving home all serious in my law stuff, in my mind. And I'd get home, and you know how dogs are? They are so excited to see you. They'd wiggle their little behinds, and they'd come up, and they'd give you all kisses. And what happened? All of a sudden, I'd shift into this other side of my personality. And it felt so good. And then Barbie, I'd go out to the barn, and I'd hang out with my horses. You know that feeling when you just all of a sudden you're shifting and you're in this different part of your personality. And I thought, hey, wait a minute. Why am I feeling this way just when I'm with my dogs, when I get home from the office, or just when I'm at the barn? I love this, and this is my life. Why am I just doing it part of the time? And so I thought, oh, shoot. I've got to start making a living hugging my dogs and being with my horses. How is that going to work? And then I thought, no, the key is that this is what I love. I'm going to start being like an investigator. and really being aware of what I love. And that's going to lead me to my purpose. And so that's what I did. And I discovered that I love helping connect people to their higher side. So I built my purpose around that. So what's your purpose? What do you love? Really, really give this thought. But don't get stuck. Because I got stuck for a while. That was a big question. What's my purpose? And I thought, I've got to come up with the perfect answer. Well, just let yourself discover it. Okay? So what's your purpose? What do you love to do? Now, once you figure that out, what's your vision? And here is where we have to really let go and allow ourselves to tap into our intellectual faculty, our imagination, and really recognize and think of our spirituality and the power that's locked within us, and come up with your vision for fulfilling your purpose. Then you come up with your goals. And the bigger your goals are, the more you're going to grow, and the faster you will unlock the power within you. So what are your goals? Finally, what are you willing to give up so that you can bring something in new and grow into who you truly are? Spend some time with these questions and reflect on them and keep coming back to them. And I hope you've enjoyed this session of Create Your Own Economy, and come back soon for the next session, because this is on the phenomenon of paradigms. This is a really powerful lesson. Thank you.